have your microphone on, I want to make sure you can hear me. Can somebody respond? Yes, no?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Good, thank you. So this is me. I'm your instructor. And during the, let's see, who is it? Nancy, let's see. Nancy, if you would, turn your camcorder off. Thank you. On the meetings, I prefer the camcorders off, but the microphone's on. You're going to have a Texas accent when you're done with this class anyway. Simply because I don't judge people by how they look, how old they are, how young they are. None of that stuff matters to me. So it's, I'd rather not know it, actually. I know that makes it less personal, but on the with the microphones on, you can, if something's important, you can interrupt me at any time you want. If something's important to you and it can't wait, then just feel free to jump right in. I want to keep it somewhat informal. Now, I'm gonna walk you through this class. Now, if you look at the Canvas shell, if you notice I'm looking down, it's because the microphone, the camera's up high, but I have to look down a little bit, so it's gonna look a little bit awkward. If you look at the Canvas shell, your first reaction is probably, oh my God, look at all of these assignments for one class. It's not that bad. I had a lot of A's last semester, a bunch, because in all three classes that I taught, simply because I have a lot of bonus points. A lot of the assignments are real simple. They're not as difficult as you might think. So I'm gonna walk you through a little bit of how you can navigate the Canvas shell. Now remember, this is only a 4-week class, so it's condensed. So that's why it seems like there's so much all at once. Well, even if we were meeting in person, that would also be the case. But I actually think online you'll find that it's not that bad. So I'm gonna use screen share, so you should be able to see what I see. And I'm going to, I think somebody let me know. You see this advertisement right here? I mean this ad, right? It says free ebook, correct? You see that?
Yes.
There it is. Okay. So this class, I'm going to go to the dashboard. These are my 2 summer classes. This is one that starts next month. I sent the wrong message to that class. So if you're in this class, it doesn't start for another month. I sent them a message and a link. I sent them a message later saying you don't need to be here tonight because that class doesn't start for a month unless you want to. But this class actually begins today. This is the class. So this is the shell. Now, when I open the shell, when you open it, there's a lot of stuff in here. If you have extra time, you want to go down and read through some of it. I know computer programming. I've done a lot of it. I know HTML code, including CSS code, which Canvas is actually written in. That's why I'm able to do a lot of this stuff. I actually know more than the people that actually teach it to the other instructors. Not that I'm not saying they're not dumb or they don't know anything. They do. They know quite a bit. I just happen to have been doing this for a very long time because I maintain a couple of websites. So what's important if you want to keep it simple? So when you open the shell, always check announcements right here. Like I'll send out an announcement every now and then. But of all these links over here on the left, the most important one, and believe it or not, the only one you even have to worry about is modules. So if I click on modules right here, this is the entire class right here. Now, you go down through here and you say, well, oh boy, that's a lot of stuff. I'm going to go through it a little bit here first. The first module is the link to register for the free ebook. You click on that, and that I've already worked with the publisher. I think you have to put your email in, maybe some other stuff. and you have access to the ebook, free access to the ebook. Has anybody done that yet? Yes? No? I bet some people have. Have you?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I just did before I take the class.
Yeah, you have to probably put school email in and stuff like that. So the tests are open book and open notes and open study guides. Now, I'm going to get to the hardest part of the class first to kind of alleviate your fears a little bit. The study guide, this is a 4-week class, so I have 4 modules. This says module 1 through 4, but this is all really just 1 week. It'll say, okay, this week, this is what you do. This is what I need to do this week. The ones that have points underneath them, those are the ones that count as part of your grade. This is real simple. We only have 4 of these Zoom meetings. There's a little quiz you take at the end of the meeting. I give you 3 codes and you enter it and you'll get a free 15 points. So if you got a pen or a pencil, I'm gonna give you the first code right now. So make a note. The first code is 434, okay? So just remember that, write it down, because at the end of this meeting, you'll take this little quiz. In fact, I'll even click on it. So what you'll do is you'll win this meeting, which is about 45 minutes from now. You'll go to the modules, you click on this, and it'll say, oh, please enter the 3 codes given to you. You enter the 3 codes, and you'll notice your first grade will be 100%. The reason I do that, let me tell you why I do that. It's because you really can't require people to go to these meetings. You can't. They might have something going on. So I record them and post them later. And they at least have to go back and watch the meetings later to get the codes, because the test is open the whole week. Let's say you're not here tonight. Shouldn't be talking to people here, but say next Tuesday when we meet, you can't be there. You have until Sunday to complete all the assignments. The 4 weeks run from Sunday at midnight to the next Sunday at midnight. So for example, this one right here, this is actually not due until next Sunday at midnight. But when we finish here, you want to take it and get it out of the way. And then this one, you can say, well, what is this? Graded discussion, class introduction. It's worth 20 points. It's just like, hi, how you doing? If you read it, it'll tell you what to do. I'll click on it. It says welcome. I'll put a little kind of a humorous little thing in here. It'll tell everyone. Some people have already done this. And so I grade those. So I'm gonna go back. So you get lost, always go back to modules. Go back to modules. So that's, I think, this week, well, wait a minute, it's a 4-week class, so there's going to be more than that too. Now, this right here, you can say, okay, this is worth 20 points. That's a video and a video quiz. It's a short video. I think it's like about a 15 or 20-minute video. It's really interesting. And then there's 10 questions on the video about the video, and you can take notes. You can watch a video as many times as you want, and then you take that little quiz at the end. It's worth 20 points. Also this week, you might be saying, well, what is this? This is worth 0.1 points. It's not worth doing. Well, it's actually worth 25 points, but it's bonus points. The reason I have to put 0.1 is because I got to give it some kind of grade. So if you don't do it, you get 0.1 points. If you do it and answer it, you've got the entire week. I think you'll find it very interesting, because those 25 points, they add up later on. That's bonus points. Now, suppose you don't do it. It doesn't count against you at all. It'll show you have a 0. You actually have a 0.1, but it doesn't count against you. If I click on this, it tells you exactly what to do. It's a utility that I've developed over the years. It talks about vitamins and minerals. It tells you how to get the points. I'm very generous on grading the points. Generally, if you do it, I don't grade you on your English and your writing ability. I just make sure that you made a decent effort on it. this vitamin document, you click on here. Oh, that's a downloadable one. I didn't mean to do that. The online one. You can download it and keep it if you want. You're not going to find a document like this anywhere on the internet, including Google. It talks about what vitamins are. If you ever, because there's so much misunderstanding, if you look at this, now depending upon how your computer's configured, I have a widescreen, you may not, so it might look kind of bunched up. These are all the vitamins. Now the books will tell you there's 13, there's actually more than that. There's some things that are kind of vitamins, kind of not vitamins. Like for example, you may say vitamin U, I've never heard of that. Click on vitamin U. Now I have to scroll down a little bit. It'll actually talk about it a little bit. And there's a little video of what it is. It talks about basically it's stomach ulcers. So it's not technically a vitamin, but some of them actually are that'll surprise you. Like for example, you don't need to know any of this, I'm just kind of showing you. Let's see, let me find vitamin K. This is in alphabetical order. It's been a while since I've looked at this. K4. Okay. I clicked on K4. Oh, I'm going to go back. But you can, basically on this bonus thing, it allows you to pick kind of vitamins that you're interested in. If you want to print out something on vitamins and you got a lot of paper, you can do that. That's a huge document. But going back to the vitamin document, this talks about what are vitamins, etc., because there's a lot of misconception about it. It might be K3 that I'm looking for. Give me 1 second here. Yeah, here we go, K3. I even put this on here. Synthetic, beware, can be toxic used in pet food. So there's K3. It's man-made. These are the various other names. And there's a video by this lady. She talks about why is it in my pet food. It's actually can be very toxic. And supposedly they tell you in pet food, well, only put a little bit in, but you got to be leery of that kind of stuff. But anyway, I'm going back to modules, so I went back to modules. That's just a bonus thing that you can choose to do or not to do. So this week, what's due? Well, you can say, okay, I got to do my introduction. Tonight, I'm going to take that little quiz and I'll give you all 3 codes. I'll give you the second code here in just a minute. I'll give you the third code at the end. I got to watch this little video. It's very interesting. This guy's really good. And take that little quiz. Then there's a discussion, another little video, and there's another little video here, and there's a graded discussion. Discussion doesn't mean it's like a test, it's just something you respond to. If you click on these, it explains it. So there's 4 of these modules. So there's one, see they're combined, it says module 5 through 9, it's week number 2, there's 4 weeks of these kind of modules. Now going back, let me go back to the beginning a little bit here. If you want to print out the syllabus, you just, right here, the downloadable printable version, if you want to print it out, you don't have to, because I've got it online right here. If you click on that, that's a screw up with Canvas because it makes it narrow. I pointed that out to them. They keep saying, no, it doesn't. I said, yes, it does. On widescreen monitors, it makes it very narrow. You need to get a hold of me. There's my email. Best way to get a hold of me, just send me a message under messages, and like messages, it'll be in my inbox. I'll respond to it. That's better than email because email takes longer. Like if you get confused or something happens or something comes up that you have no control over, I'll work with you on that kind of stuff. So I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but I'm gonna give you the second code. So this is a review. The first code is 434. The second code is 233. 233. I'll give you the third code when we wrap up this meeting, but I want to take it out of screen share. Give me a second. There we go. It's a little bit better. Okay. So it's in when you go to Canvas. I shouldn't have taken it out so quick. I'm going to go back to screen share. I took it out a little bit quick before I wanted to show you this. Go back to modules. Remember, if you get lost, go to modules. Everything is in modules. The hardest part of the class, I don't want to say the hardest part, but the part that takes the most time is working the study guides, because the tests are made from the study guides, which are made from the book. 95% of the questions on the test are from the study guides. So if you noticed, the first week we don't have a test. The second week there is one. Test number 1, chapters 1 through 3, spotlights A and B. That's in the book, but it's also from the study guides. You can say, oh, I wouldn't work on those study guides ahead of time, but this module doesn't open until next Sunday. But however, if you scroll all the way down here, I went ahead and made all the study guides open right now in case you wanted to say, I want to start working on them now. Chapters 1, 2, and 3. And then there's spotlight A and B. And if you notice on those study guides, you can print them out. You click on it, you can print it out and work on it. I set this class up to where if you go to what is called Comfort Zoom. So I'm gonna click on this on the left over here. Comfort Zoom, every day of the week, including on the weekends, I set up a room from 3 in the afternoon to 5:30 in the afternoon. You don't have to be there, obviously. I'm not gonna be there. If you click on that, you can go to that room any day. You don't have to be there at 3, you can go there at 4, you can stay 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And if there's other students in there, you can screen share, you can chat with each other. And the reason I did that is so you can work on the study guides together. You can also go to people and chat and get a hold of somebody and say, hey, why don't you do chapter 1 study guide? I'll do chapter 2, you do chapter 3. Somebody else do spotlight A and spotlight B. Email them to each other, text them to each other. And that way you don't have to work them all yourself. Because when you take the test, when you do the study guides, those are the same questions on the test. Now, notice the study guide doesn't have the answers on it, but that's why you have the book. So you can use the book and the study guides on the test, but you need to have the study guides done ahead of time. And that way you don't have to work on them. You might not even have to do but a handful if you get enough people in the class to, there's enough people in this class where literally everybody could do one study guide and share it with everybody else. And that's all you would have to do is actually one study guide. But you have to trust the person to know that they're going to do that. But you can get a hold of people by going to people over here. But that's every day that's open from 3 to 5:30. I think it may be open all the time. Say you went in there at 2, it's probably open, but I'm not really sure. But that's every day. If you want to work on the study guides and you go there and you say, oh, nobody's there, forget it. I'm not going to. It'll say recording, but I don't listen to anything that's said. Don't worry about it. I delete those recordings. So like maybe there's two other people in there. You say, hey, let's get together. You work this one, you work this one, and somebody else work one. I can promise you it'll save a lot of time. Most students do that because when you do the study guides, if you do the study guides and they're halfway correct, which they will be because you have the book, you won't have any problems with the test. The tests are basic. You work in the study guides, you're working the test. I can tell you that's it. The videos, the questions are simple. The grades are usually good on the videos. The videos, I think you'll find that the videos are interesting. I don't use any of the tests from the book. I do choose the book for material to construct the test. I don't use these little assignments and things that professors use when they construct books. I've taught at Cal State Northridge for many years. I've taught almost every class you can think of: anatomy, physiology, biomechanics, biology, and everything. But I like teaching nutrition the most, simply because it's the most relevant. Now, this class is going to be different than any class you've ever had before. Simply because what I'm going to tell you may be, and in many instances it is, the opposite of what you may have heard about nutrition or been told about nutrition by even registered dietitians, MDs, PhDs, people that have written books, etc. Doctors, for example. I'm not a respecter just because somebody has an MD. It doesn't mean anything to me. It means nothing. It's just letters you put beside your name. I got a PhD. That doesn't mean anything either. It's what does the person know? That's what matters, not the number of letters they have beside their name. I come from a medical family. I have a brother that's an MD. He's a dermatologist. We agree a lot on nutrition, but he says in med school, they don't teach any of that stuff. My dad is still alive. He's a retired doctor. He doesn't agree with me on nutrition, but he's kind of from the old school thinking. You have to think at sort of a deeper level of what's going on in the body. I'm amazed. I'm amazed, almost shocked. I keep thinking we can't live in a society that is that ignorant about nutrition, yet we do. The stuff that students tell me, not all of them, because some doctors know, but the stuff that students tell me, the advice they get from their doctors or from a registered dietitian. Some registered dietitians know, some don't. I don't know whether they do or don't, not because of the degree they have or don't. I'd have to talk to them to find out, do they really know what they're talking about? And you should do the same with me. I don't mind being scrutinized just like anybody else, but there's just a wealth of ignorance out there. I've had, especially when it comes to diseases like, for example, diabetes, very often advice that diabetics are given by their doctors, not always, a lot of times it's good advice, it actually makes the disease worse than better. I mean, it hastens the progression of diabetes, and that even for doctors that specialize in diabetes, they should know better, but they don't. Some do, don't get me wrong, some do, most don't. You have to have an understanding of cellular biology and what's really going on in the body to really be able to address it. And diabetes has everything to do with nutrition. Let me give you an example of that, sort of a broad example. It's like auto mechanics. Suppose your carburetor's broken in your car and you take it in at auto mechanic. The guy says, "Oh, I can change your carburetor." Well, he knows more about cars than I do, because I don't know how to do that. But suppose somebody else says, "Hey, I can take your carburetor apart and I'll fix just the part of the carburetor that's broken, and you don't have to replace the whole carburetor." Who knows more about auto mechanics? I think the person that can get real detailed knows more. And nutrition, you have to get detailed. This is not cellular biology, but you have to have an understanding of what's happening at the deepest level, not at the anatomical level. I've taught anatomy and physiology. That's what they teach in med school. The digestive system, the small intestine, large intestine, all the enzymes, how carbohydrates are broken down, how protein is used, all these things that go on. Like the colon is 30 feet long, 6 feet long, the colon, and the small intestine is 30 feet long. I mean, this is all interesting stuff, but that's not really nutrition, that's anatomy. And that is deep of the level that they go in at med school. And so they address physically what's wrong with you nutrition-wise without getting to the root cause of what's going on. They do a lot of this with high blood pressure, which is unfortunate. There's a lot of videos, good medical videos on YouTube if you know somebody with high blood pressure or hypertension. The medications that they take, there's numerous studies out there because they don't really work. And when I say they don't work, do they lower blood pressure? Yes. And so they go, oh, you took your medication, so we lowered the blood pressure. Well, you didn't really treat anything except the symptoms of low blood pressure. You didn't address why the blood pressure is high. You masked the symptoms without treating the disease. It's like twisting your ankle and taking a pain pill and the pain going away and saying, hey, I treated it. I don't have any ankle problems anymore because the pain's gone away. Somebody asked, who is it? Tonya, have you looked at nutrition because of PCOS? Because I heard of doctors trying metformin and birth control. A lot of people with PCOS and nutrition is more beneficial. So Tonya, I'm not familiar. What is PCOS? Can you hear me?
Polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Okay. I would suspect nutrition is more beneficial. I could talk a lot about metformin. Metformin is a diabetic drug. It's made from a plant. It's actually beneficial. It's metformin. The generic is called glucophage. I don't know if people are familiar with it. If you're diabetic or you know somebody's diabetic, they might be taking glucophage or metformin. That's beneficial. Even if you're not diabetic, it's actually beneficial. I don't really have time to go into why that is because of the benefits of metformin. There's several articles on that. But a lot of doctors, nutrition will treat almost anything. It's not a cure, but it'll make almost everything better. It just does. Going back and talk about diabetes a minute. Diabetes is a really misunderstood disease. It's not really a disease. It's a metabolic syndrome. It's metabolic in nature, not disease in nature like cancer. It doesn't spread. It's a metabolic syndrome. Metabolism means just your base, how you run. Like a car idling, that's its metabolic rate. It's like your heart rate and respiration rate and digestion and things like that. But the definition of diabetes, and you don't need to remember any of this, I'm just kind of giving you an overall picture. The actual definition of diabetes is high blood glucose. That's it, high blood glucose. And a lot of people use the term sugar. It's not really sugar, there's 6 sugars, it's really glucose, which is the simplest of the 6 sugars. And there's more than 6 sugars, but that's the way the book explains it. High blood glucose, that's all it is. When your glucose is high, that's not a good thing because there's a lot of things that happen in the body. It creates glycoproteins and it does a lot of things. Over time, it can lead to all kinds of problems. It stays high long enough, at some point, they diagnose you as diabetic. We use the A1C test. They'll say you're diabetic or pre-diabetic. Didn't even make sense to me. Pre-diabetic. That's like being pre-pregnant. You can't be pre-anything. The prefix pre doesn't even exist. But they use it all the time. You're pre-diabetic. You're either diabetic or you're not. You're not pre-diabetic. That's like on a plane, I'm getting ahead of myself. That's like they'll say when I was flying the other day, I noticed how ridiculous language is, and the way people use it. They'll say, we will now begin pre-boarding for those requiring special assistance, our kids or whatever. Pre-boarding? To board a plane means to get on a plane. To pre-board means to get on before you get on. You can't pre-board a plane. You can board a plane. So what they should say, we will now begin boarding for those requiring special assistance, not pre-board. You can't preheat an oven. You can heat it or not heat it. But anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent. So anyway, it's, if somebody said they're not diabetic, and I used to take it, believe it or not, I have a confession, I did too. I got glucophage, which you're supposed to be diabetic if you get it, because I read so much of the benefits of it, and it actually made a pretty big difference. I'm not recommending that you go out and get a prescription drug, buy it off the internet because you don't know what's in it and things like that, but I actually did. And, FDA tried to confiscate it. It's a long story because it's a sort of a white powder, and it was from Thailand, so I know what they thought. And I kind of got into it with them. And finally they tested it, and the guy said, they came to my house, the guy said, we tested it, and it was glucophage. I said, yeah, and you confiscated it too, so it's mine, I bought it legally. He said, yeah, but are you diabetic? I said, no. He said, well, then why are you taking glucophage? And I said, are you a nutritionist or an MD? I said, then you don't understand the benefits of it. Give me my package and get out. That was my attitude. So I'm sorry, I have a bit of an attitude when it comes to people talking about things they don't know about and trying to enforce their authority on something that they assume you're doing that you're not doing. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. We'll have a section that I want to talk more about diabetes, but I'm going to make sort of a bold statement here, but I can stand by it. You can repeat it to your doctor, and I know this is going to be recorded, and if it was put on YouTube, YouTube would probably take it down. YouTube takes down a lot of videos that they don't like. Some of them are not good, but some of them actually have good information because they're health people. Some know, some don't. But anyway, insulin, if you are diabetic, or you have a family member that's diabetic, or a friend, or you know somebody that's diabetic, and they are taking insulin, you need to work with that person and get them another doctor, because insulin is a death sentence. There will come a point where insulin will kill you. You will become more and more dependent on it. That's an understanding of what is happening with insulin. There's a lot of studies on it. You can read up on it, but I'm just going to briefly explain what happens. When you eat, food is digested, converted to glucose, put in your bloodstream, glucose level goes up. Glucose to your cells is like gasoline to a car. We run off glucose. Your glucose level goes to zero, you're going to die in about 7 minutes. But your body won't let that happen. I've never heard of anybody dying from glucose going to zero. You'll pass out. You may feel faint, but you don't die. Your body won't let it go down to zero. It's like dying from lack of oxygen. Can't do it. Hold your breath till you die. You can't do it. You'll pass out and start breathing again. The body has cutoff mechanisms, but I've heard of people dying from high blood glucose, going to shock, diabetic shock. It can kill you. So low glucose is scarier, but it's hypoglycemia, but it's not as dangerous as hyperglycemia. So you eat, glucose level goes up. That's normal, depending on how much you ate, what you ate. And your cells are taking in glucose and using it as food. 100 trillion cells do that. That's all natural. So they're getting food, glucose level drops, goes to normal, everything works fine. How does that glucose go inside of the cell? The cell, all cells in your body, every cell in your body has on the surface hundreds, if not thousands, of what are called glucose. They're actually called, not glucose, they're called insulin receptors. When glucose level goes up, a signal is sent to your pancreas to secrete the hormone insulin. Insulin's a powerful anabolic hormone. It circulates around everywhere in your body, every cell surrounded by insulin. The insulin receptors detect insulin. That means there's glucose in the bloodstream. If your cell is hungry and needs glucose, it will take it in. If it's full and it doesn't need glucose, it won't take it in. Thank goodness. We overeat, cells don't overeat. It leaves it in the bloodstream. And the glucose circulates around, goes to the liver, is converted into fat, put into fat cells. We gain weight because we ate when our cells didn't need the glucose. But in the process of taking in the glucose, the insulin receptors are activated and they work. They respond to insulin that tells the cell taking glucose. Overexposure to insulin damages the insulin receptors. People that eat 5, 6 little meals a day, they don't have enough time between meals, even if they don't overeat and eat healthy, are constantly secreting little amounts of insulin. Over time, and a lot of it has to do with heredity, insulin receptors start burning out in cells. And say maybe half of them burn out in a cell. So that cell's not taking in the proper amount of glucose, even though it may need it. So your pancreas makes more glucose to overwhelm the system with so much glucose that the remaining receptors respond to the insulin and take in the glucose and everything works fine. But during that process of putting more insulin into the bloodstream, you're damaging the remaining receptors. They're starting to burn out. After a while, that cell doesn't have enough insulin receptors and it dies. Where do these cells start dying? Inside of arteries, because they're exposed to the most glucose. Blurry vision is one of the first symptoms. It affects circulation. It affects circulation so bad you could have arms and legs amputated. Well, what caused the insulin receptors to burn out? Insulin. What is the drug or hormone that doctors use to treat diabetes? Insulin. All insulin does is treat the symptoms of diabetes. You give artificial insulin, external insulin, you put so much in the body, your glucose will go down. Your A1C will go down. You'll feel better. You'll function better. You go back in a month later, doctor says, A1C is fine. We got your diabetes under control. But what they fail to tell you is the disease is actually getting worse. Talk to anybody that's been on insulin. They go up on the dose, they go up, and then at some point, the doctors will say, medicine can't treat you anymore, and they die. That's the fate of everybody that's taking insulin. So what is the point of taking insulin then? Now, I'm not saying if your diabetes is so severe, just quit taking insulin, it could kill you. Do what your doctor says. But the point of the insulin, up to a point, the point of insulin is to lower glucose. Not eating drops your glucose level. If your glucose level is high and you don't eat for a period of time, your cells are burning energy, they start taking in more and more glucose. Glucose starts dropping, and pretty soon it reaches a normal range. So the last thing somebody with high blood glucose needs to do is have regular eating patterns of like 3 meals a day and eating breakfast. Eating breakfast when you're a diabetic is insane. Even if you're not a diabetic, it is by far the worst meal you can eat. Now, I told you I'm going to be telling you the opposite. People have been telling me, I haven't eaten breakfast in 40 years, ever. And breakfast makes me sick. Breakfast does not give you energy. It does not affect your metabolism. It does not make you do better on tests. It does not make you perform better athletically. It does not give you more energy. As a matter of fact, if you actually eat a full breakfast, you feel like going back to sleep because there's hormones released when your stomach's full and it induces sleep. Check animals that eat a full meal, they sleep. Eat a full meal, you want to go to sleep. You say, well, I feel like I have no energy. Well, that's because you're up and moving around, your glucose went up, etc. There's nothing wrong with it either. But to tell kids, to force kids to eat breakfast when they're not hungry, that's child abuse to me. If the kid's not hungry, they're not hungry. Let hunger be your guide, not the time of day. Let the kids choose when they're hungry. Hunger is controlled by hormones. Appetite is controlled by human nature. You can be having I can eat a donut and still feel hungry. I'm not really hungry, have an appetite because one made you more hungry. And appetite, the main hormone involved is actually the hunger hormone is called ghrelin. There's many, but ghrelin takes about 24 hours to be released into the bloodstream at a significant level that it triggers hunger. And so that tells you it's time to eat. It's not, if you eat at noon, there's no way you can be hungry at 6, no way. There's not enough ghrelin in your bloodstream. You may say you're hungry, but it's a better term would be I have an appetite. Simply put, the longer you go between meals, the more time you have between meals, the healthier you'll be, the longer you will live, the less cancer you will have, the less diabetes, the less health problems you will have, much more than you can imagine. Now, heredity has a lot to do with that. Now, you're going to find some trainers that'll say the opposite, but that's okay. They don't really know. Do I recommend fasting? Yeah, absolutely. There's several videos on fasting. Somebody says, what if you're trying to gain weight? Well, weight has so much to do with heredity. About 90% of your weight is heredity. You can actually be somewhat overweight and still be healthy because a lot of that has to do with heredity. Just like you can be thin and be unhealthy. I know people thin that smoke, never eat right, and they got cancer, but they're thin. So don't go just by weight. Trying to gain weight is extremely difficult to do because it has so much to do with heredity. You may not be able to. You have to just sort of accept that. You eat and you eat and you eat and you go, well, I'm gaining weight in my stomach, but I'm not bulking up. It has more to do with hormones and heredity than anything else. Somebody said intermittent fasting or 1 meal a day, they're getting ahead. It's exactly what I'm talking about. That's the way I eat. I've been eating 1 meal a day for years. And it makes a huge difference in weight and health and disease and things of that nature. And I'm 65 and I haven't had a cold in 40 years. A lot of that has to do with heredity. A lot of it has to do with nutrition also. I also believe in working out and things of that nature. But there's so much misinformation out there about, what to eat, what not to eat, this kind of stuff, like don't eat, there's so much, like don't eat past 7. I don't know whoever came up with that, I don't know, maybe they go to bed early or something. The time of the day you eat is irrelevant. In fact, when I eat once a day, it's always past 7 because I go to sleep easier on a full stomach than lying awake when you're hungry. But I ate a bigger meal, so when I wake up, I don't even want breakfast. I'm like, ooh, breakfast? I had a big meal. I can skip breakfast, skip lunch, and feel fine during the day. I actually have a better workout on those kind of days than eating 3 meals a day. Now, can you eat 3 meals a day and be healthy? Yes. If you eat healthy and don't overeat, you can be healthy and live a normal, healthy life. But I can tell you, you're not as healthy as you could be should you decide to go from 3 meals to 2 and 2 to 1 or every other day. There's just tons of research out there on it. It's an understanding of some terms that we will go over later. One's called apoptosis, one's called autophagy. And when somebody's arguing with you, if they don't understand apoptosis, then you're almost wasting your time trying to argue with them on it. The books will tell you, and registered dietitians will tell you things that are, I understand where they're coming from, but they're so inaccurate because you've heard the phrase, you can't see the forest because of the trees. They're so grossly inaccurate that it almost does more damage than good because people go, well, they're a registered dietitian. I don't care if they're a certified skydiver. They know what they're talking about. Let me give you an example on that. when I was doing intermittent fasting and I had to have shoulder surgery because so much tennis toward the supraspinatus. They know that intermittent, like eating every other day, you heal quicker, wounds heal quicker. I don't have time to go into why that is, but they've known that for years. Even my dad knew that way back in the 1970s, but they never really understood why. And scars heal quicker, and the body heals quicker when you fast. But they had a registered dietitian at Loma Linda that would come around because I was doing that in the hospital, and they would analyze your diet, and that was a diet day I didn't eat. And so she had to write down everything you ate. And so I gave her a blank piece of paper. And she said, well, you just had surgery. It's very unhealthy not to eat. You need food to recover. You need protein to rebuild tissue. And I was real friendly, but I thought, I can't really discuss nutrition with this person because they're so brainwashed. They don't know what they're talking about. They're dead wrong. You can't analyze somebody's diet just by one day. You have to look at it over time. And I got into the fact that, we're talking about healing and that kind of stuff, but she didn't buy any of it because she had taken classes at Loma Linda that had taught her the opposite, which is fine. That's fine. People disagree. But they need to have reasons. Make sure somebody has a reason when they tell you something. What is the reason that you believe this? Don't just say, well, because I've heard it or I saw it on TV or I read it. People put things in books all the time. That doesn't mean it's necessarily true. Let me give you another example. Books say this all the time. They will tell you, including your book, that 3,500 calories equals a pound. That's incorrect. And that's in every single book. Every book is wrong. They're all wrong. The internet's wrong. 3,000, a calorie is a unit of weight. A calorie is a unit of energy. A pound is a unit of weight. It's like comparing apples and oranges. What they mean is approximately if you eat 3,500 extra calories, you gain a pound. If you burn off 3,500 calories, you lose a pound. That somewhat is true, but it's different for different people. Some people might eat 2,500 extra calories and they actually gain a pound. Other people might eat 4,500 calories and they might gain nothing, depending upon their activity level. So it depends on when you ate last and what your glucose level is. Let's say you haven't eaten in all day before, and the next day you're going to eat one meal, and it's 3,500 calories. According to the book, you'll gain 1 pound, but I can tell you you'll gain no weight. Now, temporarily you gain weight, water weight, the food has weight, but very quickly that food is absorbed, sent to the cells, et cetera, and you'll notice, hey, my weight didn't go up any. And I ate 3,500 calories. Yet somebody else whose glucose level is normal, they ate lunch and they ate 3,500 calories for dinner, that's a huge meal, they will actually gain a pound because the cells won't take it in. They will not overeat. So your glucose stays high, the liver converts it to fat and it's put in fat cells, and you gain a pound. You ate 3,500, you gain a pound. Somebody eats 3,500, they don't gain a pound. So to say it's the same for everybody it doesn't make sense. You can't evaluate food like that. Books do that. They'll show you a picture of food and it'll have some carbohydrates, some fats, some proteins, and then you're supposed to analyze it. It makes no sense. That's like me putting up a 5-gallon thing of gasoline. That's the glucose, 5-gallon container. And I'm going to ask you, how's this going to affect my car? The first thing you're going to ask is, oh, what kind of car do you drive? How many miles per gallon does it get? That's what you have to do to analyze food. You got to analyze the person first, not the food. Will this vitamin A improve my eyesight? Probably not unless you're low in vitamin A. Excess vitamins don't really do anything. They don't really do much harm either. But vitamins cure no disease known to mankind, except a disease caused by a deficiency of that particular vitamin. So you got scurvy, take vitamin C. Scurvy is almost unheard of now. If you have the disease beriberi, take vitamin B1. That's extremely rare. So does taking extra have any benefit? No. Does it have any detriment? No, not unless you take massive amounts of certain ones. I don't think it's harmful to do it. I take them occasionally. I can't tell that much of a difference. But that's some of the things that we'll talk about in this class. Somebody says, what matters most is weight loss and weight gain. I tell you, unfortunately, it's heredity. You look at a classroom full of kids, first, second graders, some overweight, especially in the US, probably most overweight. But some are rail thin, some in between. That has more to do with metabolism and things they've inherited. It's really sad. Parents blame their kids for being overweight. A really smart kid, like first grader that's overweight, and the parent starts getting on them, so that kid should look at the parent saying, I'm overweight because of you, the crappy genes you gave me for being overweight. That's closer to the truth than what that kid eats. Now, what you eat does affect weight, don't get me wrong, but about 90% of your weight is determined by heredity. So skinny kids may be skinny, skinny adults may be skinny. And you may be overweight, but you can still be healthy. You can lose weight if you're genetically programmed to be overweight, but it's going to be harder for you than other people. That's just, unfortunately, it has to do with genes associated with the functioning of the thyroid, the genes are functioning with heart rate. It's very complicated. Weight is very, very complicated. But believe it or not, being tall is actually worse than being overweight. If you don't believe me, go to an old folks home and look for tall people. You won't see any. They're dead. So it doesn't mean if you're tall, you're going to die, or you probably will, though. But anyway, because it's something about the heart pumping blood up, that's the theory. You won't find many tall people. Now, you find a few, not many. You might find some shorter, heavier people. Most of them are shorter and thin that are in their 90s or 100s. But that's heredity. That's just, unfortunately, the way it is. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It's just the way it is. We live in a society that wants to judge everything right or wrong. Sometimes you just have to say, that's the way it is. It's not right nor wrong. You don't have to judge everything. It's such a political society. Is it better to be tall or short? I don't know. If you want to be a gymnast, be short. If you want to be a basketball player, be tall. If you want to live longer, be short. I mean, that's what the research says. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It's a fact. And that's, unfortunately, when it comes to nutrition, there's just a lot of just so much bad information out there. So if you're diabetic and you're taking insulin, I would try to slowly wean myself off of it by eating less often. And if you're diabetic, I don't know if anybody's ever, I bet somebody here you can volunteer this, I won't say your name. Is anybody diabetic or know somebody's diabetic and the doctor told them to eat breakfast? Has anybody ever experienced that? No? Okay. I've had diabetics that have told me that their doctor says that they're diabetic, so they can't afford to skip breakfast because they're diabetic. That's insane. It's already high. So if you skip breakfast, it starts dropping. That's the one meal you want to skip. So if you're trying to lose weight, if you want to go to 2 meals a day, skip breakfast and go to just lunch and dinner. You'll notice a pretty big difference. A little bit of withdrawal. You may feel a little bit of withdrawal because when you change the metabolism, when you change the glucose in the bloodstream, you have what is called ketosis or ketone bodies. And that may give some people a headache because you're not used to it. Anything you put in the bloodstream over and over, whether it's good for you or bad for you, your body doesn't care. It changes your blood chemistry, and the first organ to react is the brain. The brain doesn't like change. And so the brain says, headache, headache, headache. Quit putting this in me. And then after a while, you quit, you do it so much, your brain adapts. If somebody says, Suzanne, I've heard that diabetics shouldn't skip any meals. Oh my gosh. Nothing against you. I don't know who you heard that from, but whoever told you that, I'm not saying they're dumb, I'm saying they're ignorant. Ignorant doesn't mean you're dumb, ignorant means they don't know. Diabetics should absolutely skip meals because diabetes is high blood glucose and you're trying to lower blood glucose. Hypoglycemia is low blood sugar. Now, that's less dangerous, but if you drink orange juice or eat an orange, it goes up really quickly. Everybody should. 3 meals a day is made up, by the way. When I taught anatomy and physiology, we use cadavers. I point to 6 organs in the body that point to the correct way to eat. The main one's the gallbladder. Nature tells us the way to eat, but 200-300 years ago, we got out of that because there was so much food available, so we started eating every day. And when somebody said, hey, 3 meals a day, we were never designed to eat that way. No animals are designed to eat that way. They're designed to eat a lot when food is available and go a period of time when there's no food, including our pets. That's why our pets now are getting cancer and diabetes, is because they're eating every day. You don't have to eat less to be healthy. You need to eat less often. Someone says, should you have a fixed eating schedule every day? I'd say for family hour, maybe once a day, like dinner, but the rest of the time I would say no. Because if you have a fixed eating schedule, like breakfast at 8 or 7 and noon and dinner, you do that for years, you get addicted to it. You get so addicted to it that your glucose level drops a little between the meals, but not much. I remember when I first taught at the University of Missouri, there was an older guy there that was retiring and wanted to meet me. So he said, meet me in his office at noon. He was like 60 or something anyway, because he goes to the same restaurant for 30 years. So I got there at 12:15. I was 15 minutes late. This guy's 150 pounds overweight. We got in a car, his car, he drove like he was in an Indy 500 to the restaurant. He said he had this massive headache. They brought him the same meal. He starts eating soup and the sandwich, and then his headache goes away. And then I get a 20-minute lecture about, when I say 12, I mean 12, not 12:15. I'm diabetic. I have to eat at 12. And he'd done it for so many years that 15 minutes late, and he's got a headache. And I thought, oh my gosh, how much does your glucose level drop in 15 minutes? Maybe 1 point? But his headache was real. He was so addicted to normal blood glucose that he was addicted to 3 meals a day. And if you get into those addictions, they're very hard to get out of. Food is an addiction. Glucose level is an addiction, just like any caffeine or drug or anything else. You have to train the body not to be that way. You should eat based upon hormone levels, and that's basically ghrelin levels. We eat based upon society and parties and appetite, and, social events. You got to have food, et cetera, like that. But we base everything else on hormones. Like, for example, you sleepy, that's hormones, et cetera. But we're humans. We're supposed to control our hormones. Hunger is a hormone. Control it. Don't give into it every time it presents itself. That would be like anger. There's hormones involved. Every time you're angry, you're going to shoot somebody or ram your car into it. Yeah, give into it. Sex hormone. It would be like monkeys in a zoo. Oh, I feel like having sex right here and now. I'll do it. Doesn't matter. Hormone presented itself. But we don't do that. But for some reason, with hunger, when that hormone presents itself, people say, oh, you got to give into it. There's all these terms like stamp out hunger. Are you hungry? I'd say, yeah, but I have sex drive too. Should I do something about that now? It's ridiculous. But that's the society we're in. That's the way people think. And you have to train yourself to think sort of outside the box to really examine what's going on. Last thing on this, guys, and I'm going to give you the third code, and I'm going to show you how to take that test so you can start off with a little 100% in here. I'll give you the third code in just a minute. Kind of getting ahead of myself a little bit. We only have 4 of these lectures. And so I'm going to get to a deeper level of this is what everything's based upon as far as nutrition goes. And I do this when I teach anatomy and physiology. I'll give you all, I'll repeat all 3 codes here in a second. We are made of about 100 trillion cells. That's it. Blood, every part of you is a cell. I'm not talking about water and things like that. Blood cells, brain cells, skin cells, etc. Heart cells. Put together, you have heart tissue. You have heart tissue together, you make a heart. You put a heart with arteries and veins, you have a circulatory system. You put it with the nervous system, a muscle system, a skeletal system, and then you have an organism. But it goes down to the cellular level. Everything is a cell. Cells are like living entities. They're like living bodies. They live and die many times. We live and die once. Now that particular cell dies, but other cells make copies of it. Your body, relatively recently in the past 20 to 30 years, they have discovered, there's been several Nobel Prizes awarded on this, that every cell in your body, including nerve cells, which some nerve cells can't make copies of themselves, but including nerve cells, in the DNA of the cell, double helix, the genes, you have a group of genes called apoptotic genes. These are death genes. It's called apoptosis. And when these genes are triggered, it forces that cell to kill itself. It's cell suicide. That cell dies. It doesn't just burst open and die. It breaks off into little bitty capsules. And those capsules are reabsorbed and it's reused, recycled. When a cell becomes cancerous, old, diseased, mutant, the apoptotic genes turn on and that cell dies and fades away and is reabsorbed. This happens to your skin every 30 days. You replace your skin. But did you know this happens throughout your body? It happens in your brain. It happens in your heart. You have a new heart right now, completely new heart than you had 5 years ago. You say, well, I didn't have a heart transplant, but you had it one cell at a time. One cell becomes defective, it dies. When enough die, the surrounding cells, which are the healthy ones, have the ability to make copies of themselves. And the healthy cells make healthy copies. When you allow an unhealthy cell to live, it will make an unhealthy copy. When you allow a cancer cell to live, it will make a cancerous copy of itself. What do all cells use for energy, including cancer cells? Glucose. Now, when glucose level starts dropping, which means you're not eating for a period of time, it may be symptomatic. You may have a headache, not feel good, you may feel like killing somebody. It shouldn't be, but if you're not used to it, that's what it will feel like. That means every cell has a little bit less energy. Not much, a little bit. Well, you may have a headache. Healthy cells go, no big deal. Just like a healthy person can handle stress. The first cells to respond to a drop in glucose level are the unhealthy cells, just like an unhealthy person. They can't handle the stress. Cancer cells function very poorly in a low blood glucose environment. They too will commit apoptosis when you drop glucose level. It's the most anti-cancer thing you can do. Dropping glucose level will almost, not guarantee, but almost guarantee you will never get cancer. You have to drop it significantly for a period of time. There are many studies that show this. Even a study at a USC showed that the fasting had more of an effect on curing breast cancer than did the chemotherapy on women that had breast cancer. The fasting was more effective than the chemotherapy. They compared them. Doing both at the same time was very effective. But what happens is that you drop glucose level, not just cancer cells, but unhealthy cells that are kind of hanging on, they go ahead and commit suicide like they're supposed to. When you keep glucose level normal, you're always keeping that unhealthy cell alive, and it will make an unhealthy copy of itself. You have to stress the cell to get it to do what it's supposed to do. Normal glucose level inhibits apoptosis. Now, if you tell that sentence to a doctor, they're not going to know what you're talking about. But what that means is unhealthy cells tend to hang on longer. And that's disease and cancer and you name it. It's stress. It's called hormesis. There's a little video on it. Stress that creates strength. How do you make your heart stronger? You stress it. You get on a treadmill, you walk, you run. That stress creates strength. How do you make your muscles and bones stronger? You lift weights, you walk, you run. How do you make your immune system stronger? You get sick as a kid. That makes your immune system stronger. You get a flu shot. It gives you a strain of the flu virus. That's stress. Stress creates strength, and that is true in nutrition. Your glucose level needs to go up and down. That creates stress. Normal all the time is lack of stress, and that triggers disease, aging. That triggers the expression of autoimmune diseases that some people are programmed with. They'll come on more quickly. That's called hormesis. It's a very necessary thing to have happen. And that's apoptosis, which is programmed cell death. Every cell's programmed to die when it becomes defective. The cancer cells are smart. You know what? They figured out how to turn those, they say those genes, I'm keeping them turned off. They want to live. This is how complicated your body is. So that cancer cell lives. It's not supposed to. You drop glucose levels, some die, some still hang on. So what happens is, believe it or not, surrounding cells like Star Wars, can actually detect a cancer cell. They can detect it. And on the surface of every cell in your body, there's receptors. It sounds like Death Star, but they're actually death receptors. They have different names, but they're actually death receptors that when they're activated, it triggers apoptosis from the outside. So that cell will send a signal, like a little protein packet called a cytokine, to activate the death receptors on that cell to force it to kill itself. It sounds bizarre, little missiles coming, but they do. Your cells know how to do this. But some cancer cells have even defeated that mechanism. That's why cancer is so dangerous. But your body, if you allow it to kill itself, has many ways to do this. Somebody asked me about autoimmune diseases. Even autoimmune diseases are affected by this. The genes that trigger autoimmune diseases, the bad ones that you're born with, they're not on, and they're not called, like, for example, you might have the genes for breast cancer, but you don't have it when you're born, but you may have the genes for it. And if you lead an unhealthy lifestyle, those genes turn on quicker and you get breast cancer quicker. But if you lead a healthy lifestyle with some hormesis and stress, those genes may stay turned off your whole life. And so they never express themselves. You can't change the genetic code in the cell, but you can change when it's played. It's like a hand of cards. You go, whoa, a cancer gene, I don't want to play that card. But if you eat normal and keep glucose level high, then that card's going to get played by nature more quickly. And so if it's going to do something bad, then that's going to trigger things to happen more quickly. There's just so much to it that you find people that'll say, yeah, but you teach nutrition, but you eat at McDonald's every now and then. I say, yeah, so what? I haven't eaten all day. I'm entitled to do that. My glucose level's low. None of that Big Mac and fries is going to go to my fat cells because my other cells are low in glucose. And you can't eat like that every single day. You need to have somewhat of a balanced diet. Fruits and vegetables, healthy, phytochemicals, grains, that's all like junior high nutrition. That's sort of common sense. But the concept of good food, bad food doesn't really exist because it depends upon your glucose level. I mean, if you say, what's a good food? An apple. I can make an apple a bad food. If your glucose level is normal, you eat a couple of apples, change the glucose, your cells won't take it in. It doesn't have many calories, but it'll be converted to fat. That apple, which has no fat, will be put in your fat cells. So you gain fat weight from an apple. But the apple's not the bad food. It's just that you ate it when glucose level is normal. You eat a Big Mac when glucose level is low, none of it goes to fat cells because your regular cells need it. So in that instance, the Big Mac was actually better for you than the apple, but it's not really the food, it's the state you're in that determines whether the food is good or bad. And I could even get to a deeper level than this, but that's why hopefully when you finish this class, and like I said, there's no reason not to make an A or worst case scenario B. You have so many of those. Only people that failed this class were people that literally didn't do any of the assignments at all. You'll find the videos very interesting. All of them are on YouTube, but they're links in Canvas, except for one. That's the one on the Vitamania. That one I had to get separately and put it in, but you can't find that one anywhere on the internet. So guys, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna give you the third code. Let me repeat the codes and I'm gonna show you how to take the quiz. Okay, let me find the code first. Okay, the three codes are, the first code's 434, second code is 233, and the third code is 324. Now, what I do before we end this meeting, I always record these meetings and I post them. If you go to modules, you can view this meeting on my YouTube channel, or you can watch it straight from the modules. You'll see if you go to modules, this meeting will be recorded and posted by tomorrow. I know how to do a lot of video editing, so I do a little intro and things like that. Because since you're here now, you don't have to, but if you miss the next meeting, it will be recorded with the three codes. So I'm gonna do a little screen share. So here's a little share, here's the class. So if you go to modules, you might want to follow along with me if you want. If you go to modules, okay, so we're in week 1. That's this one right here. You click on that. Enter the three codes. I think you have to click tape or something. Mine's the instructor view, so I click preview. I don't know what it's going to show. It's going to show one question at a time, but click, enter that, click next, enter that, click next, enter that, click next. And then when I go back to like grades, which I can show here, it'll show 100%, because that's this one right here. These little things right here means people have already done that. So when you take that little quiz, you get all three codes right, it'll be 100%. And feel free to ask anything. Does anybody have any questions on anything?
Could you answer the question that another student had written in the chat box? It was Lord's. It said that, what would you recommend for someone who does string training 3 to 4 times a week?
With somebody doing what?
It was a question that another classmate had asked in the chat box.
Right. Yeah, I get so many of those. It's hard to read those in lecture at the same time. What was it again? Can you repeat it?
I don't know if it's a he or she, but says, what eating habits would you recommend for someone that does strength training 5 times?
Strength training? Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, there's a whole video about that later on. It's called a vegan. It's about a vegan bodybuilder who's ranked 1 in the world. He talks about how he gets his protein and things like that. I can tell you right now, and I've taught weight training for years. I can tell you right now, despite what a trainer may tell you, there is nothing, and I mean nothing, that you can eat or take that builds muscle. Protein powder, creatine phosphate, eating meat, etc. It does not work that way. That's been debunked probably now for 30 or 40 years. What builds muscle is, number 1, is heredity, it's hormone level. Number 2 is working out. And number 3 is messing with your hormone level. When I taught strength training, I had a lot of guys real skinny. They come in there, they lift weights, they're skinny when they get out. They bulk up a little bit. Some people bulk up a lot, that's heredity. But they said, well, how can I bulk up a lot? I said, well, start taking steroids. They're like, what? I said, yeah, I'll show you the internet where you can get them. There's a pharmacy in New Zealand. In fact, it's very expensive, but just act like you're fake whatever, fill it out. And it's very expensive, and they can send you the needles, and you can inject them directly into your muscles. I guarantee you it'll work. You'll bulk up. But I said, I'm going to tell you right now, if you start doing this in your 20s, you probably won't live to be 35, 36 years old, because it will damage your liver and your kidneys. All kinds of bad things will start happening to you. When you start messing with hormones, unless you're deficient in that hormone, it's very, very dangerous to actually do that. The only thing for strength training, believe it or not, working out in a low blood glucose environment is harder to do, but it develops muscles more because they're under more stress. I wish I had more time to go into to why that is, but that's actually the case. So we'll talk more about that next time. Just kind of remind me, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, guys, so go ahead and take your quiz. It's right here. You click on that. No, that wasn't it. It was the 15-point quiz. See, I got lost. Go to modules. Once again, go to modules. It's okay. Week 1. Where's that 15-point? There it is. Take it, and you'll notice 100% for your grade. Okay. I will see you. Do this week's assignments. Any problems? Send me a message, and I will see you 1 week from tonight. Bye, guys.